how can anyone truly be happy? It feels like this ultimate question, doesn't it?
It really does. And we get so many messages, often conflicting ones, about where happiness comes from.
Exactly. We're often told, our past defines us, or we need that validation from others to feel okay. But what if? What if the real path is completely different? What if it means rethinking all of that?
A radical rethink, definitely. It's something many people are searching for, even if they don't quite frame it that way.
Well, today we're doing a deep dive into precisely that. We're exploring the really profound insights of Alfred Adler, one of the giants of psychology, especially as they're presented in this incredible book, The Courage to be Disliked.
Ah, yes. It's structured as a dialogue, which makes these sometimes quite complex ideas feel very accessible and, frankly, challenging.
It really is. This isn't just dry theory. It's this dynamic conversation that questions, well, pretty much everything you might think you know
Hmm.
about control, about courage, about how we connect with others.
And what's fascinating is how Adlerian psychology, for all its depth, offers these surprisingly direct answers to that big happiness question, often by just knocking down assumptions we didn't even realize we had.
Yeah. So our mission today is to unpack some of Adler's most revolutionary ideas. Think of it as a shortcut to understanding how maybe you can reclaim some agency, reframe your relationships, and find a more genuine kind of happiness, starting right now.
Get ready for some real aha moments, I'd say. It can genuinely shift your perspective.
Okay, so let's jump into the first big challenge Adler throws down.
Hmm.
Imagine you have a friend. He shut himself away for years, really struggling with anxiety, can't leave his room,
Mm-hmm.
a difficult situation.
Right. And our first instinct, most of us anyway, is to look for the cause in his past. Maybe childhood trauma, bullying, difficult parents. Something made him this way. That search for causes, that's etiology.
Exactly. The standard cause and effect model we apply to almost everything, especially psychology. But, and this is key, Adlerian psychology flips this completely. It uses a concept called teleology. Teleology. Okay, what does that mean, practically speaking?
Instead of past causes determining the present, Adler says our present actions are driven by present goals. Goals we might not even be consciously aware of.
Goals. So for the friend who can't leave his room.
The philosopher in the book puts it, well, quite bluntly. He argues that the friend doesn't want to go out. And so he creates the feelings of anxiety and fear as a justification, as a means to achieve that goal of staying inside.
Wow, creates them. That sounds almost like blaming him or suggesting emotions aren't real.
Not quite blaming and definitely not saying the suffering isn't real. It's more about understanding the function the emotion serves. The anxiety is real, but its purpose from this view is to avoid going out. It's a tool.
A tool. Okay, that's a lot to take in. What about something like anger? When you just fly off the handle. Surely that's not
But
chosen.
think about the example in the book. Someone's yelling, absolutely furious at a waiter. Then the phone rings.
Ah, I remember that. They instantly switch, right? Perfectly calm and polite on the phone.
Exactly. So was the anger an uncontrollable force, or was it a performance, a tool used, maybe unconsciously, to make the waiter submit or pay attention? Adler would argue it was the latter, a means to an end.
That leads to his view on trauma, which is probably the most controversial part for many people.
It really is, because Adler, quite radically, denies that trauma in itself is a definitive cause of our current state.
He actually says, no experience is in itself a cause of our success or failure.
We make out of them whatever suits our purposes. That's the crucial bit. We are not determined by our experiences, but the meaning we give them is self-determining.
Self-determining. So the event happens, but we decide what it means for us, what purpose we use it for.
Precisely. It doesn't negate the pain or the reality of the event, but it reframes it. The power isn't in the event. It's in the meaning you construct around it. Your life isn't just handed to you by your past. You are actively choosing how to live based on the interpretation you give those past events.
That is a profoundly different way of looking at things. It puts a huge amount of responsibility back on the individual, doesn't it?
It does, and it can be uncomfortable. It suggests that maybe, just maybe, you're making what the book calls a persistent decision not to change your lifestyle, even if you say you're unhappy.
A life lie. Why would someone do that?
Because change is scary. Facing the unknown, the anxiety of trying and maybe failing, sometimes it feels easier and more secure to be just the way one is, even if the way one is isn't great.
Like that example of the aspiring novelist who never submits their work.
Exactly. As long as they don't submit, they can keep the possibility alive. I could be great if only I tried. Actually trying risks shattering that illusion. Staying put, even unhappily, avoids that risk. It's a subtle, often unconscious, protection mechanism.
Okay. So if the past isn't the ultimate cause, and even our emotions can be tools for present goals,
Yeah.
where do our problems actually come from, according to Adler?
This is another big one. He makes this incredibly bold statement. All problems are interpersonal relationship problems.
All problems. That seems huge. What about feeling inadequate or lonely, even if you're physically alone?
Well, think about it. Loneliness itself only makes sense in the context of others, right? It's the feeling of being excluded, disconnected from a community. If there were no others, the concept wouldn't even exist.
Okay. And inferiority.
Always subjective, always a comparison. You only feel short if you compare yourself to someone taller. You only feel less intelligent compared to someone else. If you were alone on a desert island, you'd just be. The judgment, the feeling of inferiority, arises only in relation to other people.
That makes sense, but isn't some feeling of inferiority normal, even useful?
Absolutely. Adler distinguishes between a healthy feeling of inferiority, that sense of, I'm not there yet, so I need to strive, and an inferiority complex.
What's the difference?
The healthy feeling is a trigger for striving and growth. Like, okay, I don't know much about this, so I'll study harder. It motivates you. The complex uses that feeling as an excuse. I'm not good looking, so I can't get married, or I didn't get a good education, so I can't succeed. It becomes a reason not to try.
One moves you forward, the other holds you back. Got it.
And then there's the flip side, the superiority complex. People who boast constantly flaunt their achievements. Adler suggests this often comes from a hidden, deep-seated feeling of inferiority. They're desperately trying to convince themselves and others of their worth because they secretly fear they don't have any as they are.
So the boasting is a cover-up.
Often, yes. And interestingly, even bragging about misfortune can be part of this. Someone who constantly talks about their past traumas, maybe using them to get special treatment or control others.
They're making themselves special through suffering.
In a way, yes. It becomes their defining feature, a way to feel unique and gain a sort of negative superiority. It illustrates Adler's point that weakness can be quite strong and powerful. It can be used as leverage in relationships.
Wow. Okay, this idea that all problems are interpersonal, it really does shift the focus, doesn't it? It makes you think about your own life, your frustrations. How many of them are actually tangled up in how you relate to or compare yourself with others?
It invites that kind of self-reflection. You start seeing power dynamics, maybe hitting goals in your interactions, even in things like anger or playing the victim.
So when you feel that frustration or defensiveness bubbling up, it's worth asking, what am I really trying to achieve with this other person right now?
Exactly. Not to blame yourself, but just to understand the relational dynamic you're participating in. It's about reclaiming your part in it.
All right, so if all problems are interpersonal, and we're often caught in these dynamics driven by hidden goals, how do we break free? How do we actually live more freely? Adler's answer seems, again, quite radical. He says we have to deny the desire for recognition.
Yes. That need for praise, for approval from others. The book argues that living just to meet others' expectations, something often drilled into us by, reward and punishment education, isn't really living your life at all.
You end up living other people's lives.
Pretty much. You suppress your own authentic self, your I-ness, to fit in or get that pat on the head. And that, Adler says, is the opposite of freedom. If your whole motivation is external approval, what happens when it's withdrawn or when nobody's looking?
Your sense of self collapses. Okay, so how do we practically do this? Denying the desire for recognition sounds nice, but it feels hardwired.
The core tool Adler offers is the separation of tasks.
Separation of tasks.
Right.
Okay.
It's about clearly asking, whose task is this? What is my responsibility, and what belongs entirely to the other person?
Can you give an example?
The book uses the child studying example. It's the child's task to study, or to choose not to study. It's not the parent's task to force them to study.
But parents want their kids to do well.
Of course. But forcing the issue, Adler argues, is often more about the parent's own needs, maybe their social standing, their desire for control, their fear of judgment, than about the child's actual development. It's intervening in the child's task.
So the parent's task is maybe to support, provide resources, encourage, but not to coerce.
Exactly. Support, yes. Interfere in their task, no. And this applies everywhere. Your boss flies off the handle unreasonably. Their anger, their lack of emotional regulation, that's their task to manage.
It's not my job to fix their mood or feel responsible for it.
Right. It's not your burden to carry. Your task is to do your job professionally, to manage your own responses. And importantly, you are not obligated to be liked by everyone. Trying to please an awful boss to avoid conflict or using them as an excuse for why you aren't progressing, that's another life lie.
So true freedom involves
Yeah.
being okay with being disliked sometimes.
That's a big part of it, yes. The courage to be disliked, as the title says. It means not being swayed by others' judgments, following your own path based on your principles, even if there's a social cost, even if you don't get the recognition you might crave.
That is liberating, but also, frankly, a bit scary for most of us. We're social creatures. So for anyone listening, think about it. What expectations are you carrying that aren't actually yours? Whose tasks have you taken on?
And how would it feel to gently put them back down, to say, that's your task, not mine? It's a constant practice, that separation, checking your motives. Am I doing this for me, for my values, or for their approval?
Okay, so let's say we start doing this. We challenge the past's hold, see problems as interpersonal, separate tasks.
Yeah.
Where does this path lead? What's the sort of positive vision Adler offers?
It leads towards what he calls community feeling. This is a really central concept.
Community feeling, what does that entail?
It's a fundamental shift in orientation. Moving away from attachment to self, being self-centered, always thinking, what's in it for me, towards a genuine concern for others.
But not in a self-sacrificing martyr kind of way?
No, not at all. It's less about sacrifice and more about contribution. It's shifting the core question from, what will this person give me, to what can I give to this person? What can I contribute to this community, however small?
So finding your place by contributing.
Yes. This commitment to the community, seeing yourself as a valuable part of a larger whole, is how you build a genuine sense of belonging and self-worth. It comes from your actions, your contributions.
And this links to how we interact, right? That book contrasts praise with encouragement.
Exactly. Praise, Adler argues, creates a vertical relationship. Someone superior judges someone inferior. Good job implies I'm qualified to judge you.
Okay, so what's the alternative?
Encouragement, which fosters horizontal relationships, relationships between equals, people who are different but fundamentally equal. The simplest form is just expressing gratitude, saying thank you.
How does thank you work as encouragement?
Because it conveys, you helped me. Your contribution was valuable. It helps the other person feel I am beneficial to the community, or simply I am of use to someone. That builds genuine self-worth, not dependent on judgment.
I'm of use to someone.
Yeah.
That feels fundamental.
It is. And crucially, this feeling of worth, this contribution, isn't just about what you do, your specific acts. It can also be about your very being.
How so?
Think of the examples given. A grandparent who is bedridden, perhaps with dementia, or a mother seriously injured in an accident. They might not be able to do much in a practical sense,
Right.
but their mere existence, their being there, provides comfort, connection, a focal point for the family's care and love. Their worth is evident purely on the level of being.
That's a beautiful point. It contrasts with people who tie their entire self-worth to their actions, doesn't it?
Absolutely, like the workaholic father figure who feels important only because he's the breadwinner and maybe uses that to dominate the family. If he loses his job or retires, his entire sense of self can crumble because his worth was tied only to his acts. Community feeling recognizes worth at the level of being, leading to a deeper harmony of life.
So how do we experience this community feeling, this sense of worth, this harmony? Is there a specific way to live?
Adler suggests shifting how we perceive time and life itself. Don't see life as a line stretching towards some distant goal, like climbing a mountain just to reach the summit.
What's the alternative?
See life as a series of dots, a series of moments. The key is to live fully here and now, earnestly, conscientiously engaged in this moment.
Like a dancer focused on this step or a violinist on this note?
Exactly. If you're always focused on the destination, you miss the journey, which is the life itself. Adler says life in general doesn't have some preordained meaning, but you, and only you, can assign meaning to your life through how you live these moments.
That involves accepting ourselves, too.
Yeah.
Not pretending to be perfect.
Yes, self-acceptance, which is different from just positive self-talk. It's acknowledging where you are right now. Maybe you feel you're at 60%, accepting that reality without judgment, and then having the courage to strive towards 100%, whatever that means for you.
And trusting others. That seems risky.
Confidence in others, Adler calls it. Believing in people unconditionally as fellow members of the community, even knowing you might get hurt or betrayed. Because remember the separation of tasks. If someone betrays your trust, that's their task, their choice. It doesn't diminish your worth or invalidate your choice to trust.
Wow. Okay. So self-acceptance, confidence in others, contribution, and living fully in the here and now.
Yes. When you learn to dance the moments, engaging fully and earnestly in the present without being ruled by the past or paralyzed by the future, the meaning of your life starts to emerge. It unfolds through the living.
That's a really hopeful way to look at it.
Hmm.
So for everyone listening, maybe the question becomes, how can you shift, even slightly, from asking, what can others do for me, to what can I contribute?
And what's one small moment right here, right now, that you can choose to fully engage with? To dance it, as Adler might say. That's where the meaning is found.
It really brings the power back to the present, back to your choices.
It absolutely does. Taking that power back, one moment, one interaction at a time, realizing your worth isn't conditional, it's inherent in your being and your participation.
So we've journeyed through some pretty challenging territory today with Adlerian psychology. We've questioned the tyranny of the past, reframed problems as interpersonal, explored freedom through separating tasks.
And arrived at this idea of community feeling, finding worth through contribution, and simply being, all experienced by living fully in the here and now.
It's a real shift from what happened to me to what will I do now?
A fundamental reorientation, really. Moving from feeling like a victim of circumstance to being the author of your own meaning. It puts the power squarely back in your hands.
And the book leaves us with this really potent final thought.
Hmm.
We don't lack ability, generally speaking. What we often lack is courage.
It all comes down to courage. That's the final line, isn't it?
It is. So maybe the question to leave everyone with is this. What's one small act of courage you could take today? Maybe towards self-acceptance, trusting someone just a little bit more, or making one small contribution to your community, however you define it.
Just one small step, perhaps, to start experiencing that deeper, simpler kind of happiness Adler talks about. It's not about grand gestures, necessarily, just the courage to begin.
Yeah, that's the challenge and maybe the invitation. This deep dive, as always, just scratches the surface of the courage to be disliked. We really hope these ideas give you something to reflect on, maybe inspire you to look at your own here and now with fresh eyes, and step forward with maybe just a little bit more courage.